Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Friday night feature here on Wrestling Royalty and Give Me a Hole Yeah. And tonight we're going to be talking about the current landscape of WWE, what's going on. We're outside of SummerSlam, we're outside of Bash in Berlin. We're on the way into the final throw-ins of the year, which seems very scary for a number of reasons. But what better time to take stock and have a think about what's coming up next, because there's still some tasty premium live events to finish off the year. Bad Blood will be here before we know it, and then obviously we've got a Survivor Series, and back in then we'll be on the way to the Royal Rumble, which is going to be in the 1st of February or something, I think, this year. So a few months out, but what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a chat about what happened last weekend, what we think is going to happen going forward, and the best way for us to work is to make sure you guys get in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on what's going on in WWE, what's going on in NXT, TNA. Let us know anything wrestling. Put it in. Our moderator Mark is in as well. He's setting the guidelines there. We don't talk about politics here. This is a politics-free zone. We don't talk about things that are outside the wrestling sphere too much at all. I appreciate there's some very heavy allegations going on with people connected to WWE, whether they are currently employed, were employed by WWE. It doesn't matter. We're not going to be going into anything like that. Mark spelled that out in the comment section. That's it. That's the end of it. We don't go into it anymore. So please don't ask us to. It's not our place to say allegations, etc. We won't be talking about it. I say we because there is someone waiting in the wings to join us. It's everyone's favourite fake journalist, Mr. Sam Smith. Here he is. That was the only way I could introduce you today. And Sam, you've been experiencing the both sides of Twitter. You've got people who are very nice on Twitter, and you've got people who are very keen to break you down and pull you down. And I think you are frothing at the mouth to be able to have a little bit of a speech, a bit of a monologue about how your last couple of weeks have been since your infamous question at All In. So, my friend, it's good to see you, but the floor is well and truly yours.
I might surprise you, Andy, because I haven't got a huge amount to say about. Yeah, okay. Look, if we're going to talk about All In, let's talk about All In, because the longer I've thought about that, and it hasn't been the soul-searching, agonizing thing some people thought it might be. Like, here's the thing. Let's talk about it. I asked the question to Tony Khan, which was, if I had got to finish the question, that's not me throwing shade, that's just me simply stating, if I had got more than a couple of words out, it would have been incredibly obvious that my question was meant with love. It was the question was generally about. So this started in ECW, and any of us who watched it back then, I watched it, and I remember the story. Basically, Taz made his own title, and because he couldn't get the world title, so he made his own called F the World. And at the beginning, it was a little bit of somewhat of a comedy story. And over the years, it has become beloved. And in AEW today, and I'm a massive fan of the FTW Championship, I actually always have been. Today, it's come such a long way from that beginning. That's what I was referencing. Now, I used the word joke, and that was a clumsy word. Hold my hands up. I could have come up with a better word than that, but it had been a very, very, very long day, and we were knocking on the door of midnight, and we've been on the go since 7 a.m. So, yeah, there could have been a better word. However, the question was originally going to be, so it started out as a bit of an unserious title. Over the years, it's become beloved. It's been in 2 different companies now, but it's featured so prominently, particularly in this storyline with Chris Jericho and Hook, and on this big pay-per-view in Wembley. Is it maybe time to consider it an official AEW title? Does it deserve that? That was where I was going with it. And now the good news is, I did clarify the question in the whole thing with Tony Khan and I. And some people thought I was throwing shade at Tony Khan when I said Hook brought it in. I was referring to ECW, because when Tony said, "Oh, I brought it in," I was like, no, Tony, I'm going back 20 years to ECW. You were like me, sat on the couch watching it as a fan. Yeah, you brought it into AEW, but I was talking about its beginnings in ECW, and if anybody watched that, come on now, it's called the F the World Championship. It was designed to be a bit of fun at the time, and it's only become beloved in the time since then. And I had a rather wholesome interaction with Taz on Twitter as well. There's a couple of things I can't, I'm not going to say, but I've had a few people that reach out to me personally that might surprise some people listening, and I don't want to say it because they haven't sworn me to secrecy, but they've also not said say this at the same time. So, in the name of professionalism, I'm going to keep their names to myself. But I have had people reach out to me and say, "Don't worry about it. We knew what you meant. The whole room knew what you meant." And I will go on the record and say this has been clarified with the brass at AEW, and this has been clarified with their PRs. And you will be seeing WrestleSphere at future AEW events in the UK. I can promise you that right now. Hopefully, it'll be me, and I've got a chance to redeem myself. But we've also got a team of people. Hey, Rishab, hey, dude. We've also got a team of people at WrestleSphere, and it doesn't. It's not always going to make sense to be me and Dom. Like Dom's editor in chief. I'm editor of WrestleSphere. Andy, you're one of our associate editors as well. It doesn't make sense for it to always be us. Like at some point, we are going to need to give back, and we are going to need to send some young people there as well. So that would be nice. But yeah, in regard, so that's all I've got to say about All In. It was clumsy wording, but it's had a happy ending. We're all friends. Everything's okay. And what I will say is it kind of restored my faith actually in wrestling Twitter, because for every person who told me to go and kill myself, and they did, for every person who made comments about Jess, and they did, for every person who just sent me something insulting or the conspiracy theory, this is my favourite, Andy. The conspiracy, there's me saying I didn't have much to say. Oh, lies. The conspiracy theory that Dom and I started a business, right, or at least expanded his existing business with a wrestling arm, right? We worked really, really hard, Andy. We got eyes on our website. We got our accreditation to go to these shows. We did all of this, and the hours of interviews that we've done and the articles we've written, paying people like yourself and Joe and everybody else, creating this network of freelancers and wrestling journalists, just so we could get to that point with Tony Khan and annoy him. That's the conspiracy. We are WWE plants who have been sent there to cause trouble. I mean, to the people who believe that silly conspiracy theory, do you not wish there was a more realistic answer, which is tired journo? Use the wrong word. That maybe that's, the life and the truth is often a little bit boring, and I'm afraid that's the case here. If there was some big fun conspiracy, I would be exploiting it for views on Twitter. I promise you that. But if you're referring this morning to the fake journalist thing, like the thing I put on Twitter earlier tonight, that's actually in regards to something a little bit more personal. Because like I said, it's restored my faith in wrestling Twitter. For all the nasty comments I got, most of them were positive. Most of them were leave him alone. He didn't say anything wrong.
I noticed there was a lot of fellow journalists who as well were very keen and quick to kind of jump into your defense. Not that you need defending, but it's always nice when your peers are very understanding about the situation, because every single one of us has been in a similar situation. And sometimes you're lucky because it's in a one-to-one interview and you get to edit it out. And then other times it's live and it's raw and you're in a packed room, as you say, when you're tired. Sometimes the pressure is on because you get a microphone shoved under your face because you want to get a question for the outlet, and you stumble over your words. These are and I would hazard a guess, I've seen the likes of Alex McCarthy say it, Alistair McGeorge, Sam Davis, that we know, all people that we've met and we spoke to in real life. The thing people would probably be quite surprised about with the rest of the media is there's very few people who are out to get each other.
We're all mates.
Everyone's there to get the best stories, the best lines, and that's where the kind of competition ends. People go out for drinks and meals together. We say hello. We speak to each other in the time periods, the downtime periods between, people coming out for press conferences, people coming out for interviews, and, you're in a room with people. It would be so silly to kind of get into like personal beef. Sometimes it happens because sometimes people overstep the line. Absolutely. But just understand everyone is human. Everyone gets tired, and we all joke about AEW shows being really long. Well, you guys had sat through an entire show and had to get to Wembley, etc. So, yeah, I would just say, like, if anyone's looking to tear someone down, maybe look at yourself first, because we'll see how you would cope.
And I'm not being funny. Like, if someone as as handsome and as near perfect as me can mess up, anybody can. I'm joking, obviously. I'm healing it up. But yeah, so just to clarify, I'm not going to go into what that was, but the tweet I made today was was sadly a little bit more personal, because there have been people in my life over the past few years who. I don't know about you, Andy. You work in entertainment media and wrestling and stuff like that, and cinema and movies. But there's a little bit of snobbery sometimes when it comes to entertainment journalism, where someone will say to me, another journalist, or maybe someone who isn't a journalist, will say to me, "Oh, right, well, when are you going to get a proper journalism job?" Or they'll kind of suggest that gaming and wrestling journalism or cinema and movies, TV, stuff like that isn't real journalism, and this is a stopgap while we're waiting to go and work for a broadsheet in Fleet Street. And dude, I got no desire to do that, none at all. Like, I pay my mortgage just fine writing about games and wrestling. Yeah, don't worry about me. I am and what I was saying on that tweet was to the people who have accused me, and some of them have been very recent and very personal. Some of those attacks, I'd just say to them, like, look, normally, I'm going to go back to something my nan told me, that normally when someone goes for you that way, it's because they're envious. It comes from a place of envy. It comes from a place of resentment. I've forgotten who it was who said it, but your biggest haters are often your biggest fans. And I completely buy into that. And if you're going to go to that effort to tear somebody down for doing what they love and chasing what they love and being as passionate as people like me and Andy are, and Dom and Ant and Dan and everyone else in this sphere, then it's your beef. You're the bad guy in that story, not them. Like none of us have ever done anything that. Like, my biggest crime is referring to the FTW Championship as a joke on a press conference. I'll take it a million times. So that tweet was basically saying, this is what I've done. If you don't think I'm a journalist, what more would you like me to do? Because I don't got to impress you. Like I said, I pay my mortgage just fine. Don't worry about me.
The lights are on in the background, and that's all that matters. That's all that counts. So,
oh crap! Oh balls! Well, there goes that.
But yeah, so Sam's here. We're going to be chatting about wrestling. Maybe he'll bring in some of the haters, and feel free to leave a comment, because
please, I'm begging you, make my night.
But yeah, so we are going to be chatting and have a bit of a chat about the landscape of WWE, NXT, the kind of TNA crossover that is still going on as well. But appreciate a lot of comments coming in. We've got Rishab in and Taylor. Hello, friends. I love that. Hello. Did you give me a hole? No? Okay. I think I saw a message. Hassan.
Hassan! No, you can't have a vote. No.
Hi, is Sam a fake journalist? Yes or no?
Do it. And I don't trust any of you buggers. I don't trust a word.
Hi there. Today's the last day of Fox before, I think, SmackDown and everything moves to the USA channel for a little bit, isn't it? It's that kind of weird interim, because they've got some contracts to finish before they go across to Netflix. But I think SmackDown is on USA Network for a little while longer. And I believe NXT is also moving across for a couple of weeks before it then goes on to what's the Warner Brothers one?
I don't know, mate.
They're moving on to the one that all has all the teen dramas on, I believe.
The CW, yes,
the CW, that's the one. I just know it has like things like One Tree Hill and the OC.
Well, I used to have all the Flash and Arrow and all that lovely stuff. I just want to say, by the way, I'm reading some of these comments coming in, and you're all going to make me cry. You're all absolute legends. Thank you very much.
CW, yeah, as you and Mark have both said there. So yeah, let me throw up some beautiful slides because I know you like looking at me and Sam, but I think you might like looking at these even better. Can't get words out. So just by the way, this was very late last minute because, as we've said before, we like to talk about the sort of the big things of the week in wrestling, and there's been some stuff, but normally you're looking for that one big sort of sexy hook that we can talk about and bring people in and want to get talking about it. But at the same time, it's just been generally quite a busy time in wrestling. And also I was out doing a 5K up in Newcastle. It's the Great North Run weekend. So I was doing the Great North 5K. So hot on the heels of that, I then had to throw something together. So I appreciate you all being here. That's why it's a bit all over the place, but bear with us. There is a sort of loose tangent of what's going on at the moment. And Sam suggested doing one about what's going on, the landscape post Bash It Berlin. So one of the biggest things coming out of Bash in Berlin is this feud between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Out on Raw, CM Punk, I'm finished with Drew McIntyre. We're going to move on. I'm going to move on to the championship. I want Gunther only to be jumped by a man in a hoodie, which actually I thought was fantastic. That it wasn't just, oh, look, there's a man in a hoodie. The new commentator, Joe Tessitore, who we will talk about, was just like, that's Drew McIntyre in a hoodie, which was fantastic. There was no mystery.
He's like 7 foot tall. Who could that be? I wonder.
Yeah, there was no mystery. He just went, that's Drew McIntyre, which I thought was which was great. But anyway, we've got a continuation, and it got very serious to the point where Drew McIntyre just beat CM Punk all around the ring, on the announce table, even punched at one point, I believe, went into Wade Barrett, his long-term friend, and then snapped the bracelet, this infamous bracelet that's been going on for a little while, and then shoved the beads down CM Punk's throat, and then continued to beat him down outside the ambulance in the backstage as well. By the way, as Mark said, Drew McIntyre hadn't even zipped it because he's so jacked. He didn't even zip it up, so you could just see his abs just rippling away.
A Greek god, like he's chiseled like a Greek god as well. Who else could that be? I mean, like my wife watches Raw, and she's always been a Finn Balor girl. And no matter how hard I work on my abs, right? There's no reality I ever get them looking like Balor's. No, it's not happening. But
got like 12. I think he only have like 6 or 8, but he has.
He's had them like magically added. I don't know how he's done it, but like because I'm like mine are all right. They're doing all right, but like I'm never going to reach those fairyland highs of Balor. But she's kind of now becoming a bit of a McIntyre girl. You know, she's like a bit bigger, Scottish, bit rougher, and she's kind of like. I'm starting to regret introducing my wife to wrestling. It's making me feel inadequate.
Basically what you're saying is every so often she'll glance up and she'll make sure she glances up from her phone or book when...
Oh, she'll put them down when these boys are on. She'll put them down. Like, to be fair, she's only... Like, the only T-shirt she'll wear is a Gimme Julio one or a Finn Balor one. She owns a couple of Finn Balor ones. She wore them in Cardiff as well. So there's a couple of pictures of her online wearing them. I might share them later. Dom said to me, "We stop sharing pictures of your wife in Finn Balor t-shirts." Like, we get it, Sam. We get it.
So I don't think there's anywhere else we can start. We'll talk about it for a couple of minutes. But CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre looks like we're going to get a third installment trilogy. Is it building up to something like a Hell in a Cell? What's your thoughts on how they've continued this feud? Has it run its course already, or are you just wanting to see what happens in the end?
See, I'm really liking it. I am, and my only issue with it is I feel like we're going a bit 50-50 booking. But obviously we need a rubber match. They've kind of got to do 50-50 booking if there's going to be a rubber match. Just the whole, if you watch wrestling before, that's how this works. It's what it does. I think Hell in a Cell is Bad Blood is perfect. I think it makes complete sense. But that has to be the end. And I'm sick of this goddamn bracelet. I get what they're doing with it. It was fun for a couple of weeks, but it's getting on a bit now. It's like, Punk, dude, like, yeah, I get
it's done now.
It better had be.
Unless he shits out and then puts it like back together. But
and I'm like, but here's the thing, right? As much as I'm enjoying Punk versus McIntyre, and I've liked all their matches so far, the first one was a bit more of a storyline schmoz, but and that was fine. That was exactly what it needed to be. But what we all really want, and let's stop kidding ourselves, is we all really want Punk versus Rollins. That's the story. I get Rollins has been written off TV, and there are good reasons why. And I'm a bit unsure what they're going to do with McIntyre after that, because he still needs to be at top of the card, particularly in terms of storytelling. And I do, like, obviously, that's where they're going. They're probably going to do it at Mania, which will be Ace. But that's, I'm kind of like, I want them to get there. And is it dragging a little bit? Yeah. After Hell in a Cell, after Bad Blood, I do think they need to evolve this story. It can't go on to a fourth match. I think Rollins might need to do something that maybe annoys both men. Like they could do it like a three-way match, potentially, but I don't know if that's overbooking it. I don't know. But yeah, I do like it. Nice to see Jason Jordan coming out every week as well and nearly get beaten up by McIntyre.
And Kenny, isn't it, from Spirit Squad?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's knocking around. Yeah, I do wonder if they will go Hell in a Cell or they'll do like an unsanctioned match, because it kind of feels like Pierce is doing the whole like I've lost control like of these two, and I don't want to sign off on this. But I also kind of feel like maybe it needs to be like the only way out is like a contractual thing to be like, guys, once you've had this match, it's done, because it kind of feels like that's the only really get out they have. Because why would you go from having this proper hatred for each other to then just forgetting that each other exists? And that's something that WWE have almost got out of, this whole like isolated universe where I'm done with you, I'll move on to the next thing. And we've seen them move away from that. So, things intertwine and interlock, and you never really truly get away from people. And I think the only way they can do that is to maybe put, I'd say, a clause in the contract when they're signing it to say, like, after this, you guys are done. Like, you are not to like kind of like be together and you won't have a match again, and make it like part of the storyline. But it's the easiest way to kind of get away from this vitriol between the two of them. But we're going to keep moving on. What did you think of the new Raw commentator, Joe Tessitore, who's obviously coming with a wealth of background in organized sports, and his relationship and his kind of chemistry with Wade Barrett on Monday? What did you think?
So far, so good. I thought he was Corey Graves a couple of times when he said certain things. There's a bit of delivery didn't land on some occasions, but it's his first day. Geez, it's like, my only worry is we've had great guys in the past on Raw commentary who only been there for a few weeks and then they vanished. So I don't know if there's like a culture issue sometimes with WWE where your face either fits or it doesn't. And I think it's harder being a commentator because you're under scrutiny in a way that sometimes the wrestlers aren't in the same way because they're the superstars. And we can forgive them certain things and write it into story. It's harder to do that with commentators. So far, so good. I wish him all the best. I wish him all the luck in the world. I hope he kicks ass and becomes as legendary as someone like Mauro Ranallo or Corey Graves, Cole have. Pat McAfee is so unique in what he brings to it. I wish he'd stop hanging out with right-wing horrible people on his podcast. But other than that, I think he's great. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this guy does.
Yeah, I think as well, there's a couple of times that when he was doing the commentary, he's obviously not being fed that many lines, because the one that really stuck out is they had one of the triple threats for the IC tournament, which was Dragunov, and ended up being basically Dragunov versus Dragon Lee. And he called the finish of Dragunov rather than the Torpedo Moscow. He just said, and there's a big shoulder. And then he got a 3 count. And you're like, I'm not sure you can call like a finish a big shoulder. So there's bits like that where you're like, if he was being fed a line, he would have got it right. So they're obviously not in his ear too much, and they're kind of let him be his own person, which is actually a good thing. And the names and stuff will come over the weeks, because let's face it, the more repetition he gets in, the more he'll get used to it. The one thing I would be critical of, and I don't think it's of him nor Wade Barrett, is I kind of feel like they've messed up putting these two together on the basis that they both have very deep, booming voices. And from my ear, I feel like they were just missing a sort of like higher register emotive voice, like a Corey Graves, like a Pat McCaff. And I kind of feel like maybe the play should have been putting Corey and Joe together and Wade and Michael Cole, or you make this one a 3-man booth and put someone in who will give like a little bit more of a different register, because these are two very like heavy voices. So you kind of just want something to punctuate it a little bit. So that would be like my constructive criticism. It's not a criticism of these guys. I just think it's something that maybe they need to consider moving forward. But I thought for a play-by-play, it was a very good opening performance. I think he brings like a level of professionalism. Apparently it is the guy who's in charge of the production now. It was his idea to bring him in. So, it's another decision from him to make it more sports based, which is a pretty smart move, really. And the guy's got some wrestling chops. He did some panel work at WrestleMania. So yeah, I think he did a good job for his first week, and I think he's only going to get better. And as you say, it's just hopefully they keep a bit of faith in him. They've had people in the past who have been there a couple of months, moved on. The Irish guy comes to mind straight away, who's kind of like pushed out. And then you've got, I can't remember his name. He was there on Raw for a little bit. He had a shaven head, bald head. But again, he came from a sports background. But I think under Triple H and this one, I think they'll be fine. But yeah, Mark's saying, not going to lie, Michael Cole should have started with him first, then bring in Wade after.
Maybe.
I still think like it's difficult when you put Michael Cole, because he would just dominate so much, because that's his like natural thing of being there for so long. Whereas I feel like Corey Graves might have been able to step back a little bit and let him have it, and I just feel like that dynamic might have worked a bit better. But I also think Wade Barrett's fantastic on commentary, because he does that thing of flitting between heel and face, which is great. I kind of feel like you need that, and it depends what the storyline calls for. So like he was very serious when it came down to the Drew McIntyre stuff, and I did look in his eye and etc. But yeah, good start for Joe. Long may it continue. Briefly going to touch on this women's division, and we'll go into SmackDown in a second. But I'm not a big fan of how they booked that finish at Bash at Berlin. I thought it looked a little bit weak for Liv, and I don't know if they're doing that on purpose to then have her beat Rhea one-on-one, but I do feel like it was, I wasn't a big fan of it. What about yourself?
I didn't. For me, this was just a way for the babyface, because I actually didn't expect the babyfaces to win.
No,
I honestly thought Liv and Dom would continue getting the heat here, and Balor would do something nefarious to kind of build him up into the supervillain that they're building him up into being, which is probably what I would have done. But it's nice to see these guys get a measure of revenge and please the crowd. Of course, they're now both overwhelming baby faces, which was they've been wanting to do for a while with both of them. So I didn't. I'm kind of just thinking with this part, just get it out of the way and move on to the big storylines, which is him versus Balor, her versus Liv, which is where they're going with this. So for me, I wasn't too bothered about this. I felt like it did what it needed to do. Surprised by the finish. I didn't love it or hate it. I was a little bit indifferent because they're obviously going elsewhere with it. So I didn't really judge it too harshly or pay it a huge amount of attention, but it was nice to see Dom get beaten up a little bit. That was good. And I'm starting to feel bad for Carlito and JD McDonough, because they are now professional crash test dummies, because they're taking all the heat instead of Balor. Because if you'll notice, Balor keeps getting away with it every week. Doesn't quite get. Although Raw changed things up a little bit this week, but for me, I want to see the money matches. This was fine, but I want to see the money matches now.
Yeah, fair enough. And Mark, I think Jimmy Smith was the name that I was looking for. Yeah, he didn't.
There's another one as well.
He didn't get a shake of the stick, really. Dean's in Scenescape Shop. Thank you very much for joining us, Dean. Don't know, get your notification. Just try clicking on and off the bell. Make sure it's on, and hopefully you get it. I don't know. Sometimes things just need a little bit of a reset. But it's good to have you in, Dean, my friend. Go check out Dean's Scenescape Shop channel if you love artwork. And if you want to have some nice relaxing videos on the background while you're working on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, that's always right up Dean Street and always on the channel every week. So big fan of his. He's a big fan of ours. Much love. This is really interesting me on Raw because the IC title was not on the card for Bash in Berlin with Bron Breakker. But they are building this tournament up to have the match against Bron Breakker. But they had this big moment on Raw where an interview was interrupted and Jey Uso got very serious. And there was kind of words crossed with Bron Breakker where Bron said, it wouldn't be the first time your family's interrupted something to do with my family. I'd have to go back and see exactly what moment it is that he's talking about there. I was a big fan of this. I really, it was the moment where I was kind of like, oh, okay, what are they going to do with Jey Uso? Because he gets a great reception every week. I know we've had a video in the past where we said, is he truly a main event, as is in his nickname? But I was like, okay, I'll buy this. Like I want to see this. I want to see Jey Uso go for the IC title. I just wonder if it's going to be too early for Bron to realistically drop the title. But I also feel like Jey Uso is in a good position now to be the Intercontinental Champion. He gets that crowd reaction. He's got his merchandise. He's got his slogan. He's rubbing shoulders with Rhea, which I think is helping in terms of getting both of them over, and that kind of like flirty bit in between them. I'm very invested in this, so I kind of hope he's going to win the Fatal 4-Way next week. Jey Uso versus Bron Breakker. Are you having it, Sam?
Yeah, I think it'll be. I'm invested. Like I love Jey Uso. I think he's great. But the whole single star main event thing doesn't really do it for me because we have Punk, McIntyre, Rollins, Priest, Balor. The list goes on. I do feel like he's a little bit, Reigns, Cody. I think he's a little bit lost in the shuffle there. What I love the most about Jey Uso is the inevitable him being sucked back into the bloodline story, and I'm invested in the reconciliation with his brother somehow after Mania. Is he eventually going to forgive Roman Reigns and come to Roman's defense if Solo gets out of control? I'm waiting for the moment that Roman is surrounded by the new bloodline and goes, I didn't come alone. Both Usos come out, and then Sami Zayn comes out, and the OG bloodline go for the new bloodline. That is what I'm here for, and it's gonna happen, and it's what I'm waiting for. And I kind of feel like everything in the middle of that is not filler. Like there'll be fun matches. Like I'd happily pay money to watch the match Bron Breakker versus Jey Uso. I totally would. But for me, there's a road, and we're on it, and I'm happy to, experience each of the rest stops. But I'm looking forward to that particular destination and when we get there. So yeah, really. Let's see what they do. Bron Breakker, I love Bron Breakker's matches, and I love Jey Uso's matches. It's a styles clash, so I'm down.
I do feel like I always say this. I feel like as a singles competitor, he still needs a wider moveset, but the same could be said for a lot of people, including Roman Reigns. But I do feel like there's an over reliance on Samoan drops, spear, splash, done. And I kind of feel like there still needs a couple more layers to it. But I agree with Mark. I think at some point you've got to put a singles belt on him. His dad, Rikishi, has already tweeted out that basically if WWE don't buck their ideas up, then maybe he'll take his ball and go to AEW. I don't really see him doing much across there, but that's another conversation, I guess.
I've just got to quickly, Andy. Sorry, mate. Just quickly in regards to Samoans, you've reminded me something funny everybody needs to watch. Like they say in wrestling, never headbutt a Samoan, but something very funny happened on TNA. They have this explosion, which is kind of like a recap show. It's a bit like WWE's main event. But there was an exclusive match on there last week between Sami Callihan, who you've interviewed on WrestleSphere, and the artist formerly known as Zion Quinn, who is now just Zion from NXT. And there's a really funny moment where Callahan headbutts him and like just bounces off him because he's headbutting a Samoan. And then he's rubbing his head going, God, stupid, 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 stupid. And the commentary go, Sammy, remember, never headbutt a Samoan. And I just thought that was really funny. And it's something every promotion does. So yeah, if you want a little giggle, go and watch that. And I'm a big fan of Zion Quinn, by the way. Let's push into the moon. Yeah, sorry, mate, you were saying something about
No,
Dean.
I was just going to say we'll get on to Dean's point in a few minutes. Actually, he's predicting a Rock return at some point to get involved in that bloodline story that you were talking about before. But we'll get there. We will get there. I promise. We're going to rattle through these next one. Cody Rhodes had a match against Kevin Owens at Bash in Berlin. I thought it was a very paint by numbers match, which is a shame because I feel like both of them can have done better, can do better. I think it was a very awkward spot for Kevin Owens to be in. And that's the kind of question here that I'd ask people for the comments side of things. What's going on with Kevin Owens? Like, what do you do with him? Because the title is locked in with Cody, and it's, there's stuff going on still with the bloodline and etc. But like, what do you do with Kevin Owens? Because he's been over for years without having a belt. And they made a big thing about it in the commentary during the match, saying like, it's been X amount of months and years since he's had a championship. It's been X amount of years since he's had a championship shot. But what do you do with him? Because if he's really popular, but he's not near the main title, where does that leave him?
I think he's waiting for the right story. And the issue they've got with Cody is they're kind of spinning the wheels with him and they need to give him challenges. Like, for me, I actually hope this ends here. I actually don't want Kevin Owens to turn heel because I've seen it and he's great. But his story of him turning face again and like the journey to him becoming that, and how they've acknowledged his antics when he was a heel as well quite nicely, when he was like, look, you all had it coming. Sorry, even Sammy had it coming. I love Sammy like a brother, and even he had it coming. The only person I apologise to is Kofi Kingston. And that's great long-term storytelling. I love it when WWE remember stuff, because so often they forget stuff and then they hope we've forgotten about it as well. Again, even when Kevin Owens was a heel, he was a babyface to the fans, and often in the storylines, he was actually the babyface if you thought about it critically as well. If I was really, really on the edge of my seat, actually at the end of their match, because I thought Kevin was going to turn, I thought that's the only way they booked this is for Kevin to turn. It's the only way it makes sense, and then he didn't. And I thought, right then, okay, they must be doing it later on. Please, I want to be wrong, WWE. Please make me wrong. Please don't turn Kevin Owens heel. Move both of these men on and give them both a decent story. I see what you're doing. And it's kind of like an old territories match where two top faces have got to the top of the card. And even though they're mates and they like each other, because that's generally how it works back then, they have to go through each other. And one of them's pissed off because he couldn't get the win, but he's a good guy and he swallows his pride. And he does the right thing and shakes the guy's hand. And Randy did something similar as well on that pay-per-view, which was nice. But no, please, for the love of God, don't turn Kevin Owens heel. Like, there's so many other people they need to lean into and make them the big bad. Solo Sikoa and Finn Balor scream out at me right now as who could be the top heels in the company, and a few others. But I've seen it with Kevin Owens, and like, just think of something good for him to do rather than just going back to that well. That would be I will sigh if they turn Kevin Owens heel, because it's just
I kind of feel like you could, like, the way his career trajectory's gone is he's almost going to be a perennial tweener, because like he does things where it's like, he's it's not quite heelish, it's not quite face. He's just kind of like a bit of a stone cold killer, and like he just, like he's the prize fighter, isn't he? Like, at the end of the day, that's always been his nickname. And I just wonder if maybe him versus LA Knight is the call next, and maybe you get into that because LA Knight's kind of trash talking him, saying like, "Oh, you got a handout and you still couldn't win," or like, like, when are you actually going to bother winning? Like, when was the last time you won a feud, or when was the last time you went up against something along that lines, where it pushes Kevin over the edge, and he does slightly nefarious things, but let's face it, the crowd are always going to be behind him because they just think he's a really cool guy, a really relatable guy. But like the only way I see it is like make him have a harder edge, not to the point where he has to be a heel, but he still can just lay someone out and destroy them in the back.
Yeah, I'm not ready to boo him, especially after WrestleMania this year, with the whole him and Sammy waiting for each other at the gorilla position thing.
Yeah.
Like that was lovely. As someone who watched them in Ring of Honor, as Kevin Steen and El Generico, and knows their story, these two men, I don't ever want to see these two men feud again. I've seen it. It was great. I don't want to see it again. They faced each other at WrestleMania. It was great. I don't want to see it again. I want them to do something new with these people. Kevin Owens is an excellent babyface. I'm not saying don't ever turn him heel again. Like fine, sure, do that at some point. But this would have felt so by the numbers. And I was waiting for him to turn heel, and I'm happy that he didn't because it surprised me. They did something new. Wow. Like they'd already teased him turning. It just would have been so. Ugh, I'm glad they didn't. Just
some
put
people
him
might
in a
see
feud.
some people might see it as a demotion. I would be very happy to see Kevin Owens back in NXT and actually take the NXT title for a while, bring it up to the main roster. I think that's a great shout for him to go down to NXT in Orlando and do some work there. And because I think they're missing a little bit of star power at the moment, and I think like him against Ethan Page could be a great match and a good sort of clash on the mic, etc. So I would be happy with that as long as he doesn't disappear off the main roster. Because were he to win the title, I'd happily see it around his waist on SmackDown, defend it a couple of some of the bigger pay-per-views. But just me, I love NXT, so I would happily see it anyway.
See, also you've got the relationship between TNA and WWE now, and if this is to continue to grow and something like that, the TNA Heavyweight Championship is probably something Kevin Owens would like to have in his trophy case at some point.
True,
that's
true.
It's one of the big ones in the industry. And imagine he went there, won it, and came back to the WWE main roster with that on his shoulder. That would be a fun story, and I'd like to see that on the other side as well. But I think if the relationship between these companies continues to bear fruit as it's doing massively right now, there's so many creative opportunities like that they could do, and someone like Kevin Owens would be ideal for that, just perfect. Because over in TNA, he'd be Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes combined the minute he walked in.
Oh yeah, if his music hits, the fans will go nuts. So
just could you
another
imagine?
good shout. Let's keep cooking, man. Cody Rhodes, there was a comment there by Dean. Cody needs some drama and danger desperately.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't feel like this is on tonight. This whole Cody's going to address Solo's challenge, unless this is Cody saying, do one Solo. I really don't want to know, because like, why? Like, Solo is not, like, this is going to sound awful, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. Like, he's only the guy in the storyline against Roman Reigns. Like, I'm not interested in this. We've seen it. We know
I'll be doing a fantasy booking video on this. It'll be my grand return to give me a whole year after letting go of the SmackDown streams for health reasons, for a dozen reasons. But so
I don't know if Roman's supposed to be there tonight, because if he's not, then I just don't get what this is about.
So I'm going to give everyone a little sneak peek of where I think this is going. And it's not just me; lots of people think this, but I do think it turns out that Solo is operating on behalf of The Rock. But I'm not so sure the time is now to reveal that. I think we're talking way after Survivor Series, maybe the Royal Rumble, before something like that comes out. And I actually don't think it's The Rock facing Cody at WrestleMania. I think it's the match they wanted to do last year. I think it's Roman Reigns versus The Rock for the leadership of the bloodline, for something grander than any belts, for something more arguably important to that family and to those people involved. Here's the thing, though. I think that's what they're doing. I think that's where they're going. For that to happen, we need the old bloodline. So I'm talking the Usos, Roman and Sammy versus the new bloodline. There are also other wrestlers waiting in the wings, waiting to join the company. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I don't think Cody needs to stay involved with the bloodline story. I don't know where he goes and what he does, but I don't, and I'm certainly not ready. you know, see, I'm not feeling that one either. I do think they need to go somewhere else with it. Maybe Balor, maybe I don't know, do something else with it. But I think Cody is doing something else at WrestleMania, not connected to the bloodline. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I think the bloodline goes this way. I think Survivor Series, we have the old bloodline versus the new bloodline.
Yeah.
I think the new bloodline win. I think then it scatters off into different things from there. But ultimately, we get to a point where the older bloodline do enough to take down the old bloodline that it forces the final boss to emerge. They fight their way through the existing level bosses until they unveil the final boss. In anyone will know in the old MES games and SNES games, Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid or in Metal Gear, the final boss was actually called Big Boss, and the Big Boss is going to be The Rock, and that's the person Roman Reigns has to take down. But I also think something else important needs to happen between now and then, and that's a rubber match between Cody and Roman. And I think that needs to happen soon. And in that rubber match, Cody wins clean and there's no interference. Because think back, cast your minds back to both Manias. The first one, a schmoz where tons of people got involved, where Roman won by cheating. The second match, an even bigger schmoz, a great popcorn match, so much fun, awesome match. I loved every second of it. Terrible wrestling match. Get these two men in a cage, no interference. Have Cody go over clean. And no, see, Dean said that would kill Roman dead. I don't think it would, because after that match, Roman says to Cody, "Get to Mike. I acknowledge you, Cody." And yes, he's taken a loss, but then this is when the new bloodline come out and start beating down Roman, and this is when one of the Usos makes the save. This is perhaps where Sami Zayn maybe does something because Cody's getting beaten down. They're fighting in the back-to-back. He bumps into Roman. They turn around. Crowd start chanting, "Holy shit, hug it out. Holy shit, hug it out." And they do. Yes, Roman's had a loss, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't kill Roman because he's had a loss to the existing champion who, in this story, for the past 3 years, has always been the better man. And then you can build Roman from there. And you eventually have Roman kill Solo Sikoa cleanly, annihilate him, fights off the entire bloodline. Jimmy and Jay and Sammy are dead on just roadkill on the side of the ring. Roman takes them down, does John Cena versus the bloody Nexus on them. And that is when The Rock arrives. Because, that is what I'm thinking. And that way we've got both Cody and Roman looking strong heading into Mania. And I bet my car that is where they're going to go. And there are articles coming up on WrestleSphere about this.
Oh. Stay tuned to WrestleSphere to hear more. Stay tuned to Give Me a Oh Yeah to hear more from Sam in regards to his fantasy booking series that's in the works right now. I would respectfully disagree with everything that you've just said. I do feel like I do agree with Dean on that one. I do feel like Roman can't take a clean loss, which is why he lost it the way he did. I think he's always going to be protected to some degree. I think he's more likely if they were to have a rubber match, The Rock would cost him, or Solo would cost him. Even if it's not, I get what you mean, but I also feel like there's a reason why they put Roman where he is and have him lose the way he did. But it's
That'll be fine. That would be fine because
Yeah.
you could argue at that point. The only issue is we've never actually had a Roman versus Cody match. We've never had it. We've had 2 WrestleMania main events where that was top billed, but we've never really had it because both were just interference fests. At some point, we need a wrestling match between those two guys. And to be fair, like AEW always said they were never going to be they're not going to do all the screwy finishes. WWE does admittedly do too many of them and always has. And I'm just for once, can we just have a match where the better man wins and it's okay for him to win because he is the champion, but then do something else to make Roman look like a superhero.
But that's what they've been doing with Cody. Like that's been the story of his championship reign so far, and I feel like it's worse for it because they need a little bit of jeopardy, they need a little bit of drama because he's had his the AJ Styles stuff, and then he's had the stuff with Kevin Owens, and it's very much been born out of I'm the better man. And I know they have that I Quit match, which is a ridiculous finish for me, but that's by the by. Their first match was just I'm better than you and I'm going to show you. And the same with Kevin Owens. And I feel like it would be the same for Randy Orton. But then you have that backstory between, mentor and mentee. And I think that's probably the way they'll go. I would personally throw John Cena into that and make it
I was
triple threat.
literally about to just say,
I just the idea of John Cena versus Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes for the championship, winner takes all at WrestleMania is a huge match, massive. And in terms of putting Cody in with those two, like you're rising his star at the same time. And also you get that match everyone's kind of clamoring for, because I still think there's a little bit of like maybe reservation as to how much John Cena could go, but put him in a triple threat match and there's, the ability to come in, come out, etc. And I just to me, that sells tickets.
I'm not going to respectfully disagree, but I am going to make an adjustment. So
an attitude one.
Well, that an AA, or is it an FU? But I was going to get on to what Cody does at Mania, and I do think it should be John Cena, and I think we need to see again the best version of John Cena I've ever seen, and that was him getting desperate that he wasn't on the WrestleMania card, wanting to face The Undertaker, and essentially becoming a heel in that feud. Never felt fully turned, but in that storyline, we wanted to see Cena get shut up. We wanted to see The Undertaker beat him up.
Some of you may have done. I'm always been a Cena guy.
Well, in that match, he was a gobshite. He was the guy coming out of it. Like, they never fully turned him. There was always the plausible deniability. There was always he was still him. Like, there's a point where he nearly punched the referee at one point. Like, when you see that, like, Cena was being a whiny little martyr in that story. I'm just going to enjoy it as a fan. That was what was going on. He was fuming. Like, that was the closest we've ever seen to Cena being a heel. And The Undertaker squashed him quite rightly in that feud. I'd love them to lean into that. Don't make Cena fully a heel. Don't make him evil. But make him the one guy who never fully does it. But make him if Cody retires,
you can't do that.
Exactly. Give John Cena needs to be retired by Cody. That's the thing Cody needs to breathe the life into him. Like, because there's a lot of people are still on the fence. I love him. He's great, but we have to admit something is missing a little bit, some ingredient. John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, and if Cena loses, he retires. Is brilliant, and it also means Randy can go on to beat Flair's record and not Cena, which would be just astonishing. But I think Cody needs to be the one to retire Cena, and Cena needs to kind of get a bit dark, get a bit rough. Do you remember when he was kind of bullying Roman Reigns in those promos? It's called a promo, kid. You have to learn how to do it. Like, Cena can turn it up, and he can still be a face, but let's see some aggression.
You're in trouble when John Cena's first line is "fine speech," and then you're like, you're in trouble now.
Let's see some edge, not Adam Copeland, from John Cena. Let's see the old man Cena, who knows it's over, who knows it's coming to an end, and needs to prove it to himself that it might not be time yet. Maybe I do have a bit more time. I do have a bit more gas in the tank. Comes up against Cody. If I beat like a little bit what they've done with Bryan Danielson and AEW, it's worked a damn treat. Do that, but have Cody win, and after it, that's it for Cena. Like, who else in the company is bigger?
We are going to move on, but I would just say this, just riffing off what you said. Imagine John Cena beats Cody Rhodes, and that's the reason why Cody Rhodes turns heel.
That would be ace. That would be ace too.
He can't stomach that, like, this guy that's always been heralded as the GOAT, or his nickname that the commentators literally call him is the GOAT, comes back in, takes his title at WrestleMania, and he literally just goes full Homelander from the boys.
Or, which is like, and I love that, and I'd be game for that, because I do think it's Cena versus Cody at Mania. I do. Or what if Cena wins the belt, and he turns heel? I ain't going nowhere. C-Nation has just begun. You thought the Nexus was bad. Oh, I'm a stomp them all. Like, you know, like if they could do that, they could do it. They probably won't. Your idea is probably more realistic. But I tell you now, boys and girls, start making your peace with Cena versus Cody at Mania, and start making your peace with Cena developing a bit of an edge, or being a little bit more experimental. This is not going to be Grandad John, Joe Biden Cena. That is not what this is going to be.
Dean says he's loving the old man Cena arc, and it's not even started yet.
There you go. Thank you. That's why they pay me the no bucks. But there we are.
Moving on, we're going to wrap things up. We've got a few more things to talk about. Women's division, I've already said it on Raw. I think SmackDown it's even worse. Like, what is going on? This is going to sound awful, but you can't tell me when they decided to put the belt on Nia Jax, they didn't know this was outrageous. This is awful.
There's part of it I like, and you're going to hate me. The only part of it I like is the Tiffany Stratton part, because she's such a bitch, and I can't wait to see her turn on Nia Jax. But I think when she does it, it's going to be the biggest babyface turn in the history of wrestling, because people just want Jax. I actually want them to. They dropped the ball with Nia Jax years ago when they did the bullying storyline with Alexa Bliss. And that they were onto something very smart and very interesting with that. And in typical ham-fisted WWE fashion, they botched it because they can't do subtlety. But now Triple H is at the helm. Maybe they can. Maybe they can do something a little bit more. But I feel like Nia Jax is a caricature of Jadis from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I don't know what. I just want to see Tiffany Stratton mess with it a little bit. That's all I want to see. But yeah, I'm not into this. I just want to see Tiffany Stratton be the ultimate bitch. That's all I want to see.
But that's it. And then you're like, okay, so what are we doing? Like, where's the rest of the women's division in SmackDown? Because we have Bayley, who I think is against Tiffany Stratton tonight, who they've kind of screwed Bayley because she lost the title. And that was kind of like, what did she do from here? Nia Jax, I wouldn't even say she's polarizing. I just think like there's not a lot of love for her, and people have their opinions. I just don't think I don't think she's great in the ring. Like she's not good on the mic. I feel like it was done to antagonize people and get a bit of reaction. Okay, cool, you do that, and then it dies down. And it's crickets. Like no one cares. That's the problem. And then you go, what do we need? Do we need Charlotte back? Do we need we need star power back? We need a Becky Lynch back. We need Charlotte back. Like we need all these people to come back, because right now the women's division is not getting a lot of love, and it needs some TLC, and Triple H needs to understand that. And that's on both sides, by the way, because I don't think the stuff is working with the new faction on Raw. I don't think that there's anything clicking on SmackDown. So something has to change. We need some new blood or some old blood to come back in to bring this back to life.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's I'm just not feeling it, and it's like, do you know what we need? We need a heel Bianca Belair. I feel like I've been screaming that for 2 years. Can we have that, please?
I don't care. Make one of them the heel. Like, they're the two. You've got two potential main event players, and they're stuck together, and their faces, and it's just pretty awful at this stage, because it's like, oh, cool, we will go for the tag team titles. They're both very ambitious. Why are they stuck in the tag team?
Nikki Cross to SmackDown and have her torment Nia Jax. That would be great TV. Let's just see that. Build to a pay-per-view where she takes that belt. Because like the Wyatt Six are overwhelming baby faces now. Let's be honest. Like that's what they are. But I think what we need to see is them start going after people who betrayed their family, which was the original promise, and it's kind of just slowed down a bit. I'd love for Nia Jax to say, "Oh, Princess Tiffy," and what other minion? Pretty Deadly. You're my family, and not mean it, and then do something awful, and that's it. You've earned the wrath of the Wyatt Six because you've used the F word. Just do something like that. Mix it up. Throw. I know they're on different brands, but the brand split does not and has never mattered. So they can always do something like that.
Like, I get everything you said about Tiffany Stratton, which is it's going to happen at some point. But at the same time, and then what?
Yeah,
Tiffany Stratton's then stuck against Nia Jax or Bailey again because they haven't bothered their asses to develop the roster for the women's side.
yeah.
Anyway,
Julia.
speaking of bolstering your women's division, NXT No Mercy finished with Julia coming out. The long-awaited and anticipated Julia has finally made her way across to NXT.
I've got a confession, Andy.
You haven't seen No Mercy, have you?
I haven't watched it yet. I was going to watch it this week. I've been too effing busy with Space Marine launch, mate. Rich Apple backed me up. But yeah, I will watch it tomorrow.
Spoiler alert, Julia came out.
I know that. I saw that on Twitter. I'm not being funny, mate. I follow Misfit. So yeah. I know.
But I just think, like, I'm not like, I've seen a couple of matches because I saw a lot of people like were taking the mix saying like, oh, all these massive fans of Julia are finally going to get to see her have her first match, or we're going to see the first Julia match. So I had done a little bit of research, and there were some lists knocking around of like Julia matches that you should watch, etc.
Yeah.
So I've done a bit of research.
She's damn good.
In this moment, she looked an absolute superstar the way she was introduced. The crowd was behind her. The shots of her like coming out amongst all the kind of smoke and and the sort of like AEW do it all the time. The sort of, is it blackout that they call it? The way that Roxanne Perez, was grasping her title and kind of looking a bit shocked, and then was like, okay, let's do this then. But I just think you've got Julia coming in. I think they're probably going to put Stephanie Vasquez in as well. You've got a couple of other big signings. Hey, I even saw that apparently Jordan Grace, her contract is up with TNA soon, and she is WWE bound. I'd potentially even make her skip NXT and get her on the main roster as soon as possible, because SmackDown could really do with someone like that. But yeah, Julia looked stunning coming out, and I just think NXT are doing a really good job of bigging up the women's roster. Like most weeks, you get a good hour out of the 2 hours that they go on for is dedicated to women's wrestling, or loads of women are featured. So I think this is a really good thing, and I also think this is a great thing for Julia to kind of cut her teeth and build up a little bit of a reputation like Oscar did or Shayna Baszler did, and have her be really dominant. But I also think it's great for someone like Roxanne Perez, who's still a little bit green around the edges and needs that experience to get someone who can push her to be even better before she goes up on the main roster. So yeah, I personally think great, really good job. Well done, Shawn Michaels and NXT.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where they go with this.
And yeah, you alluded to it earlier, by the way. TNA, the fruits of this relationship, this match, I thought was probably the best of the night, and I expected it because there is, there's a lot of kind of backstory behind it, but having this whole like Rascals falling apart and MSK. And we got to see all of them involved in a little bit, but I just thought they went out there and thought, we're going to put on a show here. And also, the X Division title was very prominently talked about, so that was cool as well. I think that would be something that people go, oh, if this guy has the X Division title, I'd like to see who else is in that.
Yeah, because I mean, what people need to do is they need to watch Emergence and No Mercy back to back, because Emergence was part 1, No Mercy was part 2. So if you're just watching NXT and you're not watching the weekly TNA stuff, guys, you're only getting half of the story now. So particularly with stories like interconnected stories like this. So this followed straight on from Emergence. And after watching Emergence, this is why I can't wait to watch No Mercy, because my God, did it whet my appetite for it. But and there were some bloody good matches on it as well. And the X Division is one of the most, and has always been one of the most exciting things about TNA. If you want to book a cruiserweight division, like 205 Live, I loved 205 Live. I'd have it back in a heartbeat, but it was absolutely buried every week by the stuff they did with the X Division. And it was always the case. They could never match it. And AEW finally killed it off because they were doing that stuff every week. But the X Division has been something I've loved for years, and it would be great to see more of the X Division title from TNA on NXT because of just the whole X thing. I think it works beautifully. Yeah, well, if only Ricochet were here for it. I think, look, I love Ricochet. I think he's done all. I was a little bit worried about joining AEW, that he might get lost in the shuffle with a lot of guys like him, like Top Flight, the Young Bucks, etc. But so far, it's worked quite nicely. It's early days, but I think Ricochet in WWE did everything he was ever going to do, and I think he knows that. So there you go. It'd be a bigger fish in a smaller pond sometimes.
Yeah, but really, really cool to see the TNA relationship kind of growing, and it'll be interesting to see if someone like Jordan Grace does go from being full-time TNA to full-time WWE.
Maybe.
Like, will that fracture that relationship at all, or does it just become, yeah, we understand our place, which they kind of like know and they've steered into a lot. But
I think they've all had conversations. I think they've all been grown-ups. They've all been adults, sat in a room and had conversations about what they're going to do. I said, make your peace a few times. Make your peace, by the way, folks, with seeing TNA star Joe Hendry in the Royal Rumble this year. That's got to happen. Even if he's the only TNA guy who goes in, I actually don't think he will be, because he's got a foot in NXT as well. But even if people do go to NXT from TNA, who cares? Because they can still work TNA because of the relationship.
yeah,
And then other people from TNA can kind of step up and have moments in NXT. It's brilliant. Like Rosemary, I love her. I've been such a massive Rosemary fan. I've interviewed her a bunch of times as well. I always have such a laugh with her. She's so fascinating, so creative. Seeing her working alongside Wendy Chu made me interested in Wendy Chu for the first time ever. To be fair, her turning heel has been the best thing ever for her. Because the kind of bringing back her creepy, evil Chinese ancient lady. If they can marry those two gimmicks, I'll be into it. But it was nice seeing one of Wendy Chu's equally demonic friends come in and fight for her. And Rosemary is somebody who I'm not so sure she'd ever leave TNA to go to NXT, but she can definitely take a holiday there every now and then. And same with the main roster. And Rosemary in a women's Royal Rumble has been something I've wanted ever since they started doing women's Royal Rumbles. So just watch this space. There's so much good stuff coming up from that relationship. And Xia Li, well, I think, Xia Li's bound TNA. Well, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. Because I thought you meant Xia Brookside then. Like, it's only a matter of time before she pops up in NXT as well.
Well, yeah, she obviously used to be on NXT UK, but never got to do it, which is always strange because obviously Robbie Brookside, that can't have been an easy conversation to have.
No.
Yeah, sorry, we're going to let her go. But I think she's been cutting her teeth on the indies and cutting her teeth across in
big
Japan.
star in TNA. Big star in TNA now. She's on the map.
But yeah, she did a lot of good work across in Japan as well to kind of get a little bit more experience after NXT UK went defunct. So, lots going on as always in the wrestling world. But we're going to wrap things up here. We've had a good chat about a variety of things, and that's without even touching things like Gunther versus Sami Zayn. The tag team division title, which quite frankly, again, needs a lot of TLC, a little bit more building up. If you do want to see a good tag team match, the opening match at No Mercy was fantastic because people sleep on Chase U as a bit of a crappy gimmick, but man, that was a good match.
Storyline as well is upset a lot of people. Has been quite hard hitting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, we are going to call it a day there. I just want to say thank you very much for anyone who's been commenting. We've got Dean who says have a good weekend or a great weekend, lads. I'm going to be running the Great North Run on Sunday. So big half marathon up in Newcastle in the UK. And if you're running, best of luck. If you'd like to see more content about me running, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Rollercoaster of Running, and all the highlights will be on there. So yeah, it'd be really cool if you want to join me and see some of the highlights from the Great North Run. And I was at the Great North 5K today, so feel free to do that. We've also got some great channels like WrestleSphere, where you can go see a lot of interviews, read a lot of interviews, long form features. We've got a couple of top 10 stuff in there. We've got some recaps of Bad Blood or Hell in a Cell matches, etc. going on at the moment. So you can check all that great content out at WrestleSphere.com. We've also got Wrestling Royalty. Every Friday we are here with a Friday night feature. Give me a whole yeah. We've got Raw watch-alongs, AEW watch-alongs. We've got Sam's upcoming fantasy booking. Dom pops in every now and again with Howdy's Hangouts. AEW content, lots and lots. We could continue to talk about all the great stuff we do, but all I will say is make sure you hit the subscribe button on Give Me a Whole Yeah. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on Wrestling Royalty. Sam's going to say something here as well.
Yeah, one thing you've forgotten, Andy. What have we been incredibly busy with in the past few weeks?
Yeah, well, I say I could mention everything. If you are into TV, film, and gaming, there is a new entrant into the sphere. We've got Sound Sphere, we've got Wrestle Sphere, and now there is Screen Sphere, which is very much alive. We've got all the latest news, features, reviews. I think one of the latest ones. It's not even out of the cinema yet. That's how hot off the press it is. Joker 2 review is live on the site as well. You can see if you think about going to see Beetlejuice. Is that any good? Go check out Screen Sphere. We'll tell you on our review. So plenty of information coming there. I believe Sam is going to be dropping a Space Marines 2 feature review, something.
Yeah, I've already written one for Deserto, but I'll also write another one, a very different one for Screen Sphere as well. So because I always ensure if I do something for Deserto, I do that first and I do that priority because that's what pays my mortgage. But then if I do one for Screen Sphere, I'll always make sure it's a little bit more Sound Sphere-y, a little bit more alternative, a little bit still me, still what I think about the game, but I will add a little bit a different kind of creativity to it. I can write it in a little bit, not so much less journalistically, but a little bit more us, a little bit more freely. So that's what you'll be getting from my my second Space Marine review, which got picked up, by the way, Andy. The publishers retweeted it the other day, which was quite cool. It's lovely when that happens.
You were a quoted review.
Yeah, it's happened a few times these days with gaming. It'd be nice if it happened more with wrestling. But there we are. And yeah, I'd like to go viral, guys, for the right reasons, please. Not the wrong ones. I've had enough of that for a goddamn lifetime. But anyway, we'll see.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. You've got a list of things there to go check out. Give me a whole year, Wrestling Royalty, Wrestle Sphere, Screen Sphere, Roller Coaster of Running. There's a lot of R's in there. But we're going to finish there. And thank you very much to Sam. Thank you very much to everyone in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. I've been Andy. He's been Sam. This has been Gimme Ho Yeah. This has been Wrestling Royalty. Have a great weekend, guys.